Good morning and welcome to the CargoPartner panel discussion. My name is Sandra Sretenovic. I'm Regional Marketing Manager at CargoPartner and I'll be your moderator today. 5 years ago, who could have imagined an event like the COVID-19 pandemic changing the world overnight and catching everyone unprepared? And yet, some companies and industries have not only mastered new challenges, but managed to emerge as winners of the global crisis. How did they do it? And how can we learn from their strategies to be better prepared for disruptions going forward? That's what we are here to find out today. We are very glad to welcome on our panel today experts from various companies covering the fields of risk management, logistics, and supply chain management. They will share their experience of the past year as well as their unique insights on how to build a resilient supply chain and turn risks into competitive advantages. Dear listeners, if you would like to address a question to our experts, please feel free to write it into the chat on the right side. If possible, we will reply to these questions live in the chat. We will also select some of the most interesting questions to address in more detail at the end of the discussion. Now, allow me to introduce our panelists. Mr. Klaus Schroeder brings extensive experience in logistics from a 360-degree perspective, having worked for carriers, forwarders, as well as in the area of sourcing and procurement. Today, he is Global Category Manager on Transportation and Warehouse at FLSmidth, based in Denmark.
Thank you, Sandra, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. I represent FLSmidth, a global multinational engineering company. We have more than 11,000 employees in 50 countries, and we provide the factories, machinery, know-how service to the global cement and mining industries.
Thank you. Mr. József Kossuth has spent his entire career in the aviation industry and today is the head of cargo at Budapest Airport. In this role, he is responsible for managing the airport's cargo business development, sales and marketing activities, as well as coordinating the work of the air cargo community.
Thank you, Sandra. Budapest Airport is the main airport, main passenger airport and logistic hub of Hungary and one of the most important passenger and cargo airports in Central Eastern Europe. We are working hard on the logistic side of our business, especially focusing on the air cargo and the aviation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. 𝗣eh𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗁 is an expert in logistics and supply chain. Formerly, the Global Logistics Manager at Lindt & Sprüngli International and Vice President Supply Chain at Lindt & Sprüngli Canada, he is now the Executive Vice President of Operations at Alchemy, living in San Francisco.
Sandra, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here and to talk about risk management and impact of COVID. Alchemy is a startup out of the United States, and we offer a data science, machine learning, and artificial intelligence powered platform that quantifies and visualizes supply chain network risks and provides predictive analytics.
Thank you. John Daguiar has many years of experience in various logistics and sales roles. As Corporate Director Global Key Accounts at CargoPartner, John's main focus is to understand each customer's specific challenges. Based on these requirements, he designs tailor-made solutions to support customer projects from end to end.
Thank you very much, Sandra. I'm equally looking forward to the discussion with this interesting panel. Yes, CargoPartner is one of those companies who came out of the crisis as a winner. We made the best of it. Being a mid-size global logistics service provider, we operate in 40 countries with close to 3,500 people. We were forced to look at alternative solutions, creative solutions during this crisis. So I'm definitely looking forward to share this with within this panel.
Thank you. Now, I'd like to ask our technical support from Transport Logistics to switch to speaker view for the next part. Thank you. Let's start with a brief overview over the relevant developments of the past year. John, I'd like to refer this to you. From what you have observed, how have international companies reacted to the supply chain disruptions caused by COVID-19?
Well, this is obviously something that is on the mind of everybody, but I would say it's not only COVID-19 who has changed the way that customers look at their global supply chain. I mean, there has been many disruptions, if you can say so, already playing in the industry. Strikes at terminals, the capacity of trucking in the US market. All of these, let's say, possible disruptions, be it bigger and smaller, have always forced customers to look at their global supply chain. And I think if you then look at the ideas that I'm having with the talks that I'm having with some of the customers, that they have ideas to do some nearshoring, so bringing production or sourcing closer to the market. I think these discussions have always been on the table. What's happening now is that these discussions are happening in a faster speed. But it's also important to differentiate between closer sourcing or closer production, because there we see a different trend in the market. If you talk with customers and they want to source closer, looking at European customers, close to 68–65% of European companies say, yes, we are considering near sourcing, so buying closer to the market. If we then talk with them about closer production, that's a much smaller percentage. That's only 30% of those companies. And of course, if you look then at the European market, Central Eastern Europe is definitely has a high advantage in many ways. Of course, there is plenty available in terms of skilled labor. It's closer to the market, which causes a simpler supply chain. You benefit, of course, from the European free trade agreements. But there's one aspect that customers more and more look at also, is that if I bring it to the European market, the cost of labor compared to producing in China has had quite an interesting development. Cost of labor in China from 2004 to 2018 has grown almost 5.6 times higher. So taking that aspect in consideration, producing in the Central Eastern European region becomes more and more interesting for many customers that I'm talking with.
Thank you, John, for the roundup. I'd like to hear how these sourcing and supply chain decisions are made firsthand from an international manufacturing company. Claus, as category manager, transportation and warehouse at FLSmidth, how have the disruptions of COVID-19 influenced your supplier and production structure?
Thank you, Sandra, and thank you again to John for bringing up nearshoring, because that is, for a company like FLSmidth, we operate, you could say, worldwide. We operate in all regions of the world. Nearshoring has been the key factor for us to look at. There are absolutely a change pattern in our sourcing. The pandemic has completely accelerated that, with impacts to our, you could say, how our supply chain is operating. I agree with John that the cost in China have had a tremendous effect on how we're now looking at things. If we look at Eastern Europe specifically, you could say, then we have looked at the things that are causing the cost, you could say, there. So all regions we're looking at, and if there's one region that is you could say not ready to deliver or changes, there's always a new region that are ready to step in. And you could say the the pandemic has really accelerated because you've had all these border closings, you've had a focus that has changed. But I would like also to highlight one thing that is relevant is the supply chain schedule, and the reliability of vessels has been a major factor in us looking at shoring nearby instead. You could say we are even looking into changing our manufacturing footprint, in the sense that it makes sense for us to source locally, but also manufacture locally. And we have various projects going on at the moment to actually accommodate that.
Thank you very much, Klaus, for these interesting insights. No doubt that this development also brings a range of new opportunities for the freight and logistics sector in Europe. József, from your perspective as head of cargo at Budapest Airport, one of the major cargo hubs in Eastern Europe, how has COVID-19 affected the cargo business at Budapest Airport in the course of the past year? And how have you reacted to these challenges?
As Klaus mentioned, so the global situation, the changes in the logistics, that also this trading flows, the logistic or the disruption in the logistic flows last year also confirmed all the values of the air cargo transportation. So we know that the air cargo transportation, the air cargo is the fastest, safest, most secure logistic way what we can use, and the whole world is accessible. So and in long term, we all know that the air cargo transportation has a stable and significant role in the logistics at all. But in these heavy times, or these challenging times, what we experienced last year, when there were several problems related to the border crossings, the sea transportation, the container capacities, these values were able evaluated or lifted to a higher level. And in our long-term strategy at Budapest Airport, it is very important to emphasize that we are a cargo-friendly airport. So the cargo has an important role in the general business of the airport. Not every airport is focusing on air cargo. Some airport is focusing on the passenger business. Maybe they deal with the belly cargo flows of the long haul wide body passenger flights. But the freighters, the full freighter operation is not welcomed everywhere. But that's not the case at our airport. And if you add all these things, so there was last year, there was a situation which strengthened the air cargo transportation. Then there is an airport who is focusing on the air cargo transportation. Plus we handed over the facility last January, what is visible behind me. So that was a greenfield project, 50 million euro investment, a brand new cargo handling center at the airport. One of the best, I guess, in Central Eastern Europe, world-class level, very linear procedures and quick operation. So this helped a lot for us. So what happened last year, that first, when the COVID came, we had to act very, very quick. So together with the authorities, ministries, we had to secure the operation of the cargo flights to the airport. So with protocols, regimes, what is happening with the crew, the foreign crew entering the country. Even if you remember at the beginning in February, March, there was a madness around this. We have seen videos when people fell to the ground in China, and everybody was afraid that how this virus is spreading and what are the consequences. We managed to react quickly. We had our full freighter partners. Several are operating to the airports, also the integrators and several other full freighter airlines. And finally, what we managed to achieve, that we secured the operation. The environment was still favorable for the air cargo in Budapest. Plus, we strengthened this with the new facility. And by end of 2020, the overall volumes, so the total volume of 2020 stayed on the same level than in 2019. So we didn't have a decrease. And in the last quarter of the year, we faced a boom in the cargo, so that we have such a record volumes. The first quarter of 2021 brought plus 30% volume increase to us. This April was plus 60. And even if you compare this April to the previous Aprils, so not April of 2020, that's still plus 40-50%. So the air cargo is working very well at us. That's how we see the situation. But this is about heavy teamwork. So the freight forwarders, airlines, GSAs, shippers, authorities, they have to work together to keep this efficient operating in the future.
Thank you, József. I would now like to hear about John's experiences.
Yeah, well, it's needless to say, of course, that this disruption has caused quite some discussions with our customers in changing needs, etc. József mentioned something already, which is belly cargo. I think many of us know that freight, air freight, a substantial part of air freight is moving in the belly of a passenger airplane. And if the passenger airplane is not flying anymore, that has an effect, of course, on the available capacity. So we realize that very soon as CargoPartner that, okay, we need to find solutions for this. We introduced our own air charter services to make sure that there is a bridge between Asia and Europe, these are dedicated cargo planes flying for our partners or our clients. And that program had become so successful that we continue to do this. And we also will continue to do this even now that we see that some of the passengers airplanes are coming back and giving back capacity to the market. So that was one of the say, let's say, forces to find creative solutions for our customers. Another thing that we saw a big spike in demand was emergency services. Very often an emergency ad hoc business or shipment moved on a regular passenger airline. These were not there anymore. So we had to really utilize our 24/7 emergency desks to support our customers in the automotive, in the pharma, in the high-tech industry. So luckily those 24/7 emergency desks were already operating, available. So it was very easy for us to switch on those services for the increased demands from our clients.
Thank you, John. Now, let's move on to the topic of risk management. René, as an expert for risk management, can you share some opinions on how to design a resilient supply chain in the face of recent challenges like COVID-19 or the Suez Canal incident?
Yeah, I mean, the example that you just brought up with COVID and the Suez Canal definitely have shown and highlighted how vulnerable global and local supply chains are. And many companies today still manage their big, complex and dynamic supply chains with spreadsheets, pivot table generated from ERP data, eyeballing all these data and making any reliable sense of supply chain risk. I think it's beyond the capabilities of a single or even a group of experts. And I think, in my opinion, so it's not really a surprise that so many companies have been scrambling to deal with these kind of disruptions and left them unprepared. And I think to make your supply chain more resilient, you first have to know your supply chain. Who are your suppliers and sub-suppliers? Where are they located? And what potential risks are associated with these suppliers and providers? And then coupling artificial intelligence and machine learning and network data science with enterprise data can really reveal hidden patterns, correlations, and connections within the supply chain network. And often one single supplier doesn't really matter. It's really more the interdependencies in a network that can have a big impact. And I think comprehensive real-time, quantitative, predictive, and analytic visualization can help detect impending and unfolding risks of cascading effects. And I think that's really what happens a lot of times. What we have seen both with COVID and with the Suez Canal is not just kind of one impact, it's really this kind of ripple effect and cascading effects through the whole supply chain network. And by making more informed decisions with platforms like Alchemy Edge or some other supply chain risk management platforms can really help supply chain managers to make better decisions. And with that, they can reduce supply chain disruptions and cost overruns by proactively mitigating any cascading effects. And at the same time, also kind of increase supply chain resilience through what-if scenario simulations and sensitivity analysis.
Thank you, René, for your insights on risk management. Let us now focus on the significance of Eastern Europe. József, how has Budapest Cargo been able to benefit from growing importance of Eastern Europe in international supply chains?
I guess that's an interesting topic, and not only a benefit or a good basis for Budapest Airport in the cargo development. But if historically we check the situation in Europe, so traditionally the spending power, the consumption power, the air cargo relevant industrial power, you can talk about different bananas, blue bananas, green bananas. There are different scenarios in the past. There was in West. And in the Western European countries, for sure, it is the same. So just that the highest cargo volumes and the highest consumption or spending power is still there. But what we have to point out that since the 1980s, end of 1980s, since the system change in this Central Eastern European region. There are 18 countries just in our 8-9 hours catchment zone, which is still an efficient road cargo transportation time from the airport for the air cargo. There are 200 million people. There are almost 20 countries here. So the spending power, consumption power increased a lot. Most of these countries joined the European Union. Several heavy investments happened in this area, and several factories and lots of FDI moved into this region, and especially in the air cargo relevant sectors. So if you have a look on the automotive, electronics, logistic supply centers, or the latest trend is that the e-commerce is growing very, very fast in this region. So the estimated total e-commerce value of a year in Central Eastern Europe is $80 billion. The market was growing, and the cargo volumes also developed a lot in the last 20-30 years, and this gives an excellent basis for all logistic companies dealing with air cargo transportation. And John, thanks a lot for this charters, because CargoPartner is running also own charters to Budapest Airport from Hong Kong. So that's this is a pioneer thing on our market, and we love this. So this changed a lot. So there are volumes here. There is, and also especially for investments, for manufacturing units. For factories, as also Claus mentioned, the skilled persons, still lower operating costs than in Western Europe. So there are several things which are supporting this air cargo related industrial power development in our region, and that gives an excellent basis for the air cargo itself. So I guess, and still we are somewhere on a half of this or at the middle of this development way. So the potential is still large here.
Thank you, József. Claus, what role does Central and Eastern Europe play in your supplier and production structure?
Well, you could say FLSmidth has traditionally been very strong in the markets in Eastern Europe. We would say in the CIS countries more specifically. We've had historically many suppliers in Eastern Europe as well. If we look at our, you could say, our customer level first, then we recently opened up what we call a super center in Kazakhstan. So further developing you could say nearby logistics and nearby service centers to our customers there. Another efforts that you really need to be agile in your local customer, you could say, connection. When we look at suppliers, you could say from that perspective in Eastern Europe, then I don't think I'm offending anybody by saying that I think they've been outperformed a little bit on cost in the last 10 years by Asia. But as I also said earlier, we're definitely seeing a change in that pattern now. Asia is not as competitive anymore. We're definitely seeing that suppliers are more interesting in Eastern Europe again. So I'm actually at least seeing that trend coming, and I expect that to continue unless we see complete new changes.
Thank you, Claus. John, as a transport and logistics provider with an extensive network in both Asia and Central and Eastern Europe, how has CargoPartner reacted to the shift in global supply chains?
Yeah, Sandra, frankly speaking, we feel very comfortable in this discussion. And the fact for that is that we are immensely helped by the fact that we have a network in both regions, which are historically our strongest regions. So we are an Austrian company, as I mentioned to you, and when the company was growing, Central Eastern Europe was first as a focused region, and then go to Western Europe. And Asia, obviously, for every global logistics services provider, is a must. And I'm proud to say that in that market we have a strong footprint of a network organization. But what I think is that if I follow this discussion and I'm translating this to the discussions that I'm having with our customers, is that they're more and more looking to the end-to-end solutions. It's not directly related to the subject, but it's definitely a trend in the market as they are looking for service providers who can give them everything, basically from door to door. We are operating in Central Eastern Europe a strong network of warehouses. That's not enough. You know, what are you doing in those warehouses? Do you provide value-added services? Can you make sure that my products are going to the European market in time? Is that a service that you also offer as a logistics service provider? So customers are having these type of discussions, and that's why I'm very, let's say, comfortable to say that for both regions we have possibilities to support our clients if they are talking about nearshoring. When we have those discussions, especially, for example, in the high-tech industry, we are able to support them with a full range of services. And one other thing that I want to say is that not every customer is obviously the same. We're working with customers in different vertical markets, and they all have their own challenges. We learn from those challenges, we try to apply those challenges, and we try to, let's say, offer being a full end-to-end solutions service provider to them.
Thank you, John. Once again, I'd like to ask our technical support to switch back to gallery view now. Thank you. Now, we have heard how different companies from manufacturing, logistics, and risk management have reacted to the past year's disruptions in global supply chains. Despite this absolutely unprecedented situation, these companies have been able to turn challenges into success. But how can international companies brace themselves for similar events in the future? Is it even possible to prepare for a disruption of such magnitude? Now, I would like to ask all our speakers, what are the most important lessons learned from COVID-19, and what is your outlook for the near future? Let's begin with József.
Thank you, Sandra. That's an interesting question. How can you prepare? I would say that how can you prepare for a new COVID situation or something in the future? I really hope that we don't need to prepare for a second virus or something in some 2-3 years. But I guess that all the industrial, all the players, the stakeholders on the market, private companies, logistic companies, authorities, ministries learned a lot from this. That how can you prepare for handling of such a sad and negative situation. As a company, if we talk about the cargo and as a cargo-friendly airport, what I have to say, we know that we try to organize our cargo development work around 3 pillars. And we will remain focusing on these. One is the infrastructure. So without infrastructure, without appropriate infrastructure, and without warehouses, as an airport, for sure, runways, taxiways, aprons, the connected facilities, and also your infrastructure must be part of this organic logistics system of the country. So without this, you cannot develop. So that's one important thing. We are thinking ahead. So we are already talking about the expansions of this facility behind me, and we try to find the focus points on the market together with the cargo community, what kinds of facilities are demanded. So that's important. So this community work is an important second pillar. as an airport cannot be something like an authority or an island or something anymore. You have to go as an airport actively to the market, talk to the freight forwarders. I meet your colleagues very often. We talk about challenges, opportunities. How can we assure a more attractive, a more efficient, a more sustainable environment for the air cargo in the future? You can never stop. This is a never-ending work. It is, I would say, 80% of my actual work as a head of cargo is about this. Talking to the freight forwarders, talking to the shippers, airlines, all the market players, and the third is the connectivity. So we have also offline and online cargo connections. So the air cargo tracking, for example, from Budapest airport to several other airports is also a significant volume in our portfolio. But we need more and more cargo flights. And John pointed this out very, very well, that the belly cargo connections are still missing from the market, and this will return step by step if the travel restrictions will be lifted and people can start traveling. There are different opinions when this will be recovered, but now still the major, I want to say, part or the capacity provider for the air cargo transportation is the full freighter operation. So what we try to do, we try to bring in as much as full freighters we can to the airport. So we focus on these three pillars. This is a massive work. Personally, I say that 2020 was the most difficult year in my life, and but how would I say, we see the light at the end of the tunnel. And let's hope the vaccination and all the other procedures will help a lot to get back the life to the normal, and we have to keep these experiences from the last 1.5 years in our mind, and we have to be prepared better for the future. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, József. Klaus, would you like to summarize your most important lessons learned from the past year?
Well, I think not to jump on József, but his statement clearly shows exactly what our fear is, that nothing will change. You could say that's the whole problem. What we've learned is that there must be changes that have to come, and they apparently have to come from the sourcing and buying side. You could say I've been around for many years and I've seen disruptions coming and going, but we've never seen a disruption like this one that was over such a long period. And Renee was spot on. Companies like ours need to invest into tools, into things that are being more intelligent. That is one thing. Another thing that we have to be much more careful about is when we source through freight forwarders, on which side are these freight forwarders? Because what we've seen is a change from being a freight forwarder that was close to the customer and then putting pressure on the carriers. And we've actually seen a shift in that. Very, very predictable here with Q1 results coming out. Maersk and the freight forwarders coming out with record results, clearly indicating that the larger freight forwarders around the world are more close working with the carriers as opposed to working close with their customers. So it's definitely the buyers that are currently paying for the freight, and that doesn't seem. We understand that there are challenges. Yes, I agree with the whole thing of belly capacity missing. We're seeing containers missing, but that is things that are on the carrier side and should have been mitigated. So on my side, you could say on the buying side, there are two things more that we will be looking for. Contracts pressure that will have a much more stronger pressure on the service level, meaning that we will be ready to buy cheap or economical, as people will say, at one level, but we will also need guarantees. I mean, we ship high value commodities. The freight really doesn't matter that much in the big picture, but we still need that service where we sometimes say we have guarantees and deliveries that have to be done at given time to avoid factory closing. And then finally, you could say there are something called freight derivatives nowadays. That will be something we will try to work into our contracts to simply put a pressure on saying, it's no longer going to be acceptable when you're buying freight to simply say, well, we could not have foreseen this. Yes, you could, because you could have secured in the economic markets that you had secured in case something happened like COVID, that simply they would take the risk instead. So the carriers will face more pressure either through the freight forwarders or directly.
Thank you, Klaus. René, would you like to share your outlook as well?
Sure, yes. I mean, here in the US, a recent study showed that about 94% of the Fortune 1000 companies had a disruption in their supply chains because of the COVID pandemic. And I think with a disruption of this magnitude, it's very, very difficult to fully avoid any negative impact in the supply chain. So I think it's really more about how to mitigate any risks and being prepared for the future. And I think even once we are over the hurdle with COVID and the ripple effect slowly kind of slows down a little bit, then I think we have to be prepared for the next disruption. It might not be a pandemic, but it might be another Suez Canal. It might be another disruption. And I think I fully agree with Klaus and the other speakers as well. I think we just have to unfortunately live with some of these disruptions and really kind of prepare for it. And I think we heard it before as well, like when you look at some of the supply chains, especially bigger companies, they have thousands, if not tens of thousands of suppliers and sub-suppliers. And you can't manage that anymore just with a spreadsheet or just like on top of your head. You really have to have tools. And I think there has been a lot of advancement and development in the recent years, be it with machine learning or artificial intelligence, that you can really couple these kind of information and these kind of new technologies, and that can help you kind of to design and build your supply chain to make it on one hand more agile, but at the same time also more resilient. And with new tools, you can really do kind of what if simulations. So again, like, yes, at one point there will be another big impact. There might be another factory closure or countries that have to close down because of an earthquake or something. So you don't really know when it's going to happen, but you can be pretty sure somewhere it is going to happen. So with these kind of simulations, you can prepare yourself and see what impact it has if an entire country shuts down and you can't deliver any products anymore, or even if there is new tariffs that's being implemented, what impact does this have? And then with these kind of platforms, you can kind of calculate what is the revenue impact and really do scenario plannings and have kind of a backup plan ready for whenever there's a new or a different disruption coming up on the horizon.
Thank you, René. And finally, John, what are your conclusions from the past year?
Yeah, before I go into what we have learned as a service provider, please give me 1 minute to address some of the concerns that Klaus put on the table, and I share those concerns. Klaus mentioned that there is a feeling that the forwarders are now closer to the carriers instead to the customers. I would challenge that, but I understand the feeling. How we are always close to our customers. Customers are our first place. In the end, it doesn't matter if we move the business, for example, for FLSmidth with carrier A or carrier B. But I do understand the feeling. It is obviously also a sign of the times with the current. With a popular word, the disruption and the available capacity in the market and the prices that comes with it, that customers do feel that, okay, hey, forwarder or logistics service provider, where are you? Are you protecting my interest as well? We always do. Our customers' interests are coming in the first place, but it is indeed a very difficult situation to protect the customer's interest and to honor the conditions of agreements, etc. But I wanted to say that to you, Klaus. Yes, we are so close to our customers, also close to you.
and allow me just to say, it's not all freight forwarders that have seen this, but we have seen a very shift in this, where you could say we've traditionally seen freight forwarders being close to us. I would like to use the opportunity just to say I appreciate very much the collaboration we have with CargoPartner, because that is working very well. So allow me just to say that I don't put you maybe in the same box as everyone else, but we work with many freight forwarders around the world. So
thank you, appreciate that. So back to the question. Yeah, what have we learned? I suppose the first thing that we have learned is that global supply chains are as strong as the weakest link. And in this case, the pandemic was the weakest link. or the Suez Canal incident was a weakest link, or so these let's say weakest links have always been there. And that was also why in my introduction I said that I believe this discussion about nearshoring will become louder and louder, and will also come faster and faster. I think customers, as long as I remember, have been talking when I'm meeting clients, have somewhere, somehow, in some strategic meeting, they have been talking about the subject. It's on the table at their boardroom, and I expect that, which what's happening now, these discussions will only speed up. And another thing, what we have learned as a takeaway is that there is not enough transparency in global supply chain. A container moves from A to B, and it's 20, 30 days on the water. Very often it is quite a black box. And my expectation is also that in the future, we will see more and more solutions like intelligent container tracking, combining all data from GPS data, from terminals, from carriers, putting that together and provide real visibility to our customers in real time. You may think that this is all widely available, but these are still solutions which are not widely available. Solutions like purchase order management. It's not enough to move a container from A to B anymore. A client and to say which products are in the container to a customer. No, the customer wants to know exactly, those products belong to which purchase order. And their forwarder, by the way, you are delivering 50% less as I ordered. What are you going to do proactively to supply the remaining of my purchase order to make sure that my production, if I move that to Central Eastern Europe, does not get disrupted? All these type of, let's say, discussions of not only doing the freight movement, but what's happening around it, communication, transparency, visibility. I expect that we invest heavily in this as a global logistics service provider. I expect that our customers will also request that more and more, not only for disruptions, but just to say, this is my global supply chain. I'm missing this and this and this. And so that these are lessons learned. I believe we will make, maybe this will bring good things to the industry, where we will advance the development and looking at these type of solutions. And as I said, CargoPartner is in some of these situations in the forefront in terms of development. And that is maybe the positive thing that will come out of this bad situation.
Thank you, John, for your point. Thank you all very much for your unique insights and assessments of the current challenges on the logistics market. Now, we would like to address some questions from the audience. We received an interesting question in the chat. I would like to address this to József. What are the advantages regarding cost and available capacity moving international air freight ex-China to Central Eastern Europe via hubs in Eastern Europe?
You know that usually we don't talk about rates and percentages in conversation like this, but I would say that and I won't do this now, but the operating cost level, so and the logistic cost itself is running a warehouse or running a flight to our airport is I would say is more on a more favorable cost level than in certain Western European competitors. The other, what I have to emphasize, this is, I would say, not only the cost level is better, but what I told that if you have volume to this region, it is very worth to consider a direct operation to here. Because if we talk about, and my job is the air cargo transportation, and but I work in logistical associations in Hungary as well. So there are several things happening now in the logistics in our country, like two large rail container terminals are under construction in Hungary with more than 1 million TEU capacity for the Asian direct rail and the cargo handling in Hungary. So that's so there are other projects as well. But if you have cargo to this region, and if you talk about air cargo transportation, what I believe that to fly something to the very far to the west and truck it back 24 hours or maybe more to, I don't know, to Hungary or Romania, it is not really efficient anymore. That's my opinion, and this is something which is really considerable. So the logistic flows in the air cargo, in the rail cargo, in the sea cargo is changing. Also, that's the same a bit in the sea. If you look at other transport modes as well. If you check the ports in the Adriatic are quite well developing as well. So there are new trends, and this is what I love in the logistics, that it's a very liberal, very democratic thing. And the cargo somehow always finds its best way, like a river. It flows to the best way or the most efficient way always, and this is what we feel now, that this direct solutions and opportunities to our region is now offer better solutions for the forwarders. Let's add one thing to this 2019 thing, and as John, also René and Claus emphasized, the technology developments, tracking, digitization, very important. Let me emphasize the human factor. So what I learned in 2020 and 2021 several times, if there is a trouble, two people are calling each other and they help to each other to solve it. And this is something when this whole world is now online conferences, less personal meetings. This diverted a bit this thing to a direction that we met less, but finally people solve situation. Yeah.
Thank you, József. John, would you like to comment on this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody who works in this industry uses this famous sentence that it's people's business. It is. As good as we are doing as companies, as service providers, as terminals, as startups, it is still people's business. And I suppose we're all looking forward to have the face-to-face interaction again. I do think that what we see is that this online, let's say, cooperation also works. So there's going to be in the future a more healthier balance into what we can do online in a setting like this, and into what we can do face to face.
Thank you, John.
People's business always.
Thank you. There is another question. József mentioned earlier the rapid growth of e-commerce. John, how has the e-commerce boom caused by Corona changed CargoPartner's business?
Well, I mentioned that we have quite a good network of logistics hubs in this region. And within those hubs, we don't do we also do the normal warehousing activities, but we also were already prepared to support e-commerce activities. We were already having clients with whom we were working together on e-commerce activities, either via their platforms, own platforms, 4PL platforms, whatever. So the structure to let's say support these activities was already there within CargoPartner, and it has only boomed basically. I myself am an example of that. My online activity or my online procurement has been going up since this pandemic is in the world.
Thank you, John. We got also some interesting comments in the chat. I would like to hear again John's comment about this. Do you think the weakest link in the supply chain is actually the lack of transparency?
That's a very interesting question. Frankly speaking, we can put this question on the table. It can be René who can also. What do you think, René? Is transparency in the supply chain one of the weakest links?
Yeah, it definitely is a very interesting question. And I think it's really about its transparency and visibility as well. And I think, I mean, all of us have been in this business for many, many years, and it's still surprising like how we worked 20 years ago and still work today. And a lot of time it's either technology that's not there to help to make it more visible or to make it more transparent, but a lot of time it's also it's very complex, a supply chain and kind of a network, and there's so many different players in it, and sometimes they are not able to share all the information, but a lot of time is also they don't want to share information, and it's so difficult even for us as a startup. If you want to try to get supply chain data, it's really difficult. Like sometimes it seems like it's easier to get to healthcare data, third party, than it actually is to get to supply chain data. And yeah, I would say definitely that's kind of a very weak link around transparency and visibility that's kind of lacking. And I fully agree as well. That there has to be more done from all the partners, be it suppliers or kind of carriers or whatever providers. Definitely there has to be some improvements there.
Klaus, I saw your hand. Would you like to comment on this?
Yeah, because it's interesting that transparency has been equal to where is my cargo for many years. It's more than 10 years ago, actually, I think it's more than 15 years ago, I did the first index-based rate agreement that was following in ocean freight. And going back to you, József, here's a recommendation on bringing transparency into the sourcing part. You hear questions on what are the costs going into Eastern Europe. Well, today it's actually, as a freight buyer, you can't really see what is the average cost in the spot market for air freight into different regions. I bet you the Eastern Europe market would increase dramatically on air freight if we knew what was the opportunity and we could calculate on it. But the air freight industry has been very, very close around it. If you look at what has happened in the ocean industry, where companies like, well, originally first Shanghai Index, which was government driven, but then driven now by Freightos, by Seneta, by these technology companies that brings transparency into rates, I'm still lacking to see the air freight industry doing that. And if you brought that, it's actually interesting, because I think Eastern Europe would really benefit from having transparency into the rates, so that freight buyers could actually calculate and say, oh, I haven't really thought of actually bringing in freight that way, because we are traditionally sitting there with a feeling that bringing cargo into Budapest would be much more expensive than first bringing it into Frankfurt and then distributing it from there. So recommendation from here, at least for the air freight part, bring transparency into the sourcing and the freights.
But there is also a responsibility there for the service providers. We, as the logistics service providers, we have that responsibility as well to provide that transparency.
I totally agree, John. Totally agree. The difference has just been that I can't run an RFQ every month, which is actually what the pandemic has given us, spot rates that are going up and down every month. Well, actually every day. But the point I'm making, John, is that transparency is up to the service provider to bring, but at the same time, you would really love to get independent sources that could bring these things. So important here that not only the service provider brings this, but the carrier themselves also bring something into it. So anonymized data, if you come with from a carrier side and simply say this has been the average freight rate moving for the past month, that gives the freight buyers a perspective into it, so that they can have a good dialogue with their service providers about this and saying, well, why don't we look in this area?
Thank you, Klaus. I'm very glad to talk about this offline sometimes. But John, thank you for the comment, because this is what I believe that final freight forwarder is summarizing all those rates and packages and charges from the airline, from the airport cargo handler, and the freight forwarder is charging it to the shipper. So that's the or the address, so or the buyer. So that's the freight forwarder has also the freight forwarders have also a very important role in this. Telling the truth, I guess this 2020 is maybe not the best period, how would I say, it is always good to talk about this and to initiate good things. But if you check this, you know, the madness in the capacities everywhere, in the sea transport, in the air freight transport, the changes, simply the period was, I guess, not the best to implement things like this. So and we hope that this will get to the normal. In the air cargo transportation, at least volumes are on the pre-COVID level, and the capacities with returning the belly cargo will return also to the normal level. I guess this will also increase this will improve the price situation globally, and so this will get maybe more transparent as well soon.
Well, thank you very much. And a big thank you to our listeners for these interesting questions and comments as well. And thanks again to our speakers for sharing their perspectives. We hope you were able to take away some new insights that can help you plan your supply chain more efficiently and leverage the great potential of the Eastern European logistics market. If you have any further questions that we could not address today, or would like to find out more about the points we have discussed, please feel free to contact our team via the Transport Logistic online platform, or find out more at www.cargo-partner.com. We look forward to talking to you soon, and we hope you enjoy the rest of the event program. Let's hope we can meet again in real life at the next Transport Logistic in 2023. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Yes.
Thanks a lot.
All the best. Thank you.